God say, Lord, I need your help in here because I just don't know how long I can hold on.
Come on.
But you know what? As a Christian, you just got to be patient. Let me give you a definition of patience. I'm going to give you several definitions, and you pick the one that you like. Amen. Patience is long suffering. It's long suffering. It ain't short suffering. It's long suffering.
Okay.
Another definition is by Tony Evans says is to hang in there and not let your fuse burn down too quickly. Amen. Y'all heard Grandma and them say, boy, you getting on my last nerve. In other words, their fuse is burning down. You ought to tell your neighbor, don't let your fuse burn down too quickly. Then another definition is to stay put and stay put and steadfast when you're about to run away. Ooh, good God Almighty. Man, y'all don't have to say nothing, but I know somebody here, you have decided one time before, I just should run away. Amen. That joke ain't treating you right, you should say, I just should. Amen. Run away. You ain't got to say amen because, you know, you sit beside the day. There's some times in your life, you have a job, you'll have a job, and that job was so frustrating, and you thought to yourself, it's best if I just run away. But patience is to stay put and steadfast.
Amen.
And not run away. Oh, I like that. And then the final definition of patience is to have submission of God. Is to have submission. That means to have submission and patience. Is that mean you make a decision that you're going to take a step back and let somebody else lead. Oh God, okay, y'all didn't get that. Y'all thought I was talking about marriage. Amen. Amen. Submission in a trial. When you have the right to say what you want to say.
Come on.
And when you have the right to stand and battle with the situation.
Yeah.
But you say, I'm gonna
Amen.
take a step back.
Amen.
How many of us in life have to learn how to take a step back?
Yes. Come on.
Come on, patience. And see, when we submit our lives to God, we are trusting that He will work out everything in His time.
Yeah.
Now, y'all don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Y'all don't agree with
Yeah.
that. I said it, but I don't know, because in His time, that means that God don't come when you want Him.
Come on.
God don't come exact time that you think He should come. God has His own timetable. And so there's sometimes in our lives, God don't show up. What do you do? When God don't show up when you think He. I feel like preaching today.
Come on. Preach.
You have to understand. You have to understand that we as Christians have to trust God in the process.
Amen.
That means that you have to go through trouble. You have to go through heartaches. You have to go through some tough times. And you got to say, God, I trust you in the process. You may not understand it. You may not agree with it. But God, I'm going to have patience.
Yeah. Come on.
text is, it says, he says, see how the farmer. Now listen, to a farmer, he has to work the ground. He has to plant the seed. But the harvest is on God. Amen. Woo! Well, I'm preaching, y'all ain't caught up yet. The farmer has to wait on the rain.
Yes.
He can pray for rain. Milton, he can demand it to rain. But he has no control when it rains.
Yeah.
But he has to count on it raining so his harvest can come.
Amen.
Here you go. He has to wait on the sun to shine.
Amen.
After a good rain, he don't need the wind to blow. He has to wait. He has no control.
Amen.
The farmer patiently waits, realizing that he cannot hurry the process of God.
Amen.
Oh, boy, I'm preaching up in here.
Come on.
And I come by to tell somebody this morning, you cannot hurry God's process.
Yes.
You got to learn to be patient.
Amen.
Here goes. The farmer have to realize, listen to this, that he have to understand his limitations. He have to understand his limitations.
Amen.
He have to understand his limitations. And I come by to tell somebody this morning, do you know your limitations?
Amen.
You may be a good wife, but do you know your limitations? You may be the man. You got the big chest. You all of that bag of chips and got some dip on it. But you got to know
Amen. Come on.
your limitations. Because if you don't understand your limitations, you might do stuff that God's supposed to be doing.
Right.
And you might get in God's way. Who I'm talking to this morning that God said, I can't work because you in the way.
Amen.
I'm just preaching, y'all. If you don't know your limitations, life will frustrate you. Somebody should say it.
Come on.
Not only will life frustrate you, but it will cause you to be frustrated with God. Because you'll say, God, I thought you were going to handle them folks. God, I thought you was going to handle that situation. And some of you said, I'll just have to do it myself. You, my friend, my child of God, you got to understand your limitations. Not only will you get frustrated with God, but you'll get frustrated with other people. See, I know I shouldn't depend on you anyway. I didn't realize how weak you were. And you go into insulting people, hurting people, because they had limitations that you put on them because they're not God.
Amen.
See, nobody can take God's place. So the farmer had to know his limitations. He got to know that when he have done the best job he could, he had to know that when he just got to step back and just relax and trust in God's process. Amen. And that's what God's trying to tell somebody here. Let's turn to Galatians quickly. Galatians. This is a long sermon, but I'm trying to make it short. Galatians the 6th chapter. Galatians the 6th chapter. Galatians the 6th chapter. Galatians the 6th chapter. Y'all got it?
Word.
Y'all already know it. Y'all can say, oh, I can quote it, Pastor, if you told me to. Galatians the 6th chapter, verse 9. Listen to what he says. Listen to what this says. Let us not become weary in doing good. Let us not. How many times, y'all, you've done the right thing? You know you've done the right thing. But weary stepped in. You know that you tried to do your best. But weary came in. He said, let us not become weary in doing good, for at what? The proper time. Proper time. Now what that mean? At the right time. Can I tell everybody in here this something today? I want to tell you a secret the devil don't want you to know. God has his timetable for you to come through. Amen. Don't you give up. Don't you be impatient. Don't you stop waiting. God has a time. And you got to go through your situation. You got to go through your trial. You got to go through your pain. You got to go through your heartache. God has a time. Yeah. But you can't become weary. Yeah. He says, at the proper time, we will reap. And let me tell you, somebody, it's harvest time in your life. Amen. Because you waited, you stayed the course. Yeah. God said, harvest time. That was the promise to the children of God. Harvest time is coming. Yeah. Harvest time is coming. If you don't give up. Amen. If you don't give up, you can't give up. I know times are dark. I know times are tough, but you cannot give up. Amen. Amen. Are y'all with me? Yeah. He says in verse 8, he says, you too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord is coming, is near. Listen, church, we must do all that God expects us to do. See, I didn't get amens on that. See, you want God to bring the harvest, but you must do everything God expects us to do. Amen. Then wait on God. Amen. Did y'all hear what I said? Amen. That's why we named this year, our theme is what? Stickability, the power of enduring. You got to stick with God. You can't give up. You cannot quit, because it ain't quitting time. God is going to do what he said he's going to do, but it's going to be on his time. Amen. When I've done all I can do, that's when I trust God for the impossible. Is there any impossibles? Oh, God. Amen. Every child of God should have some impossibles. Every child of God says, God, this is impossible for me to do, but can you do it? Amen. Every child of God should challenge God for some impossibles.
Yeah.
Have you challenged God lately with some impossible? I know you can do something. I know, but have you challenged God for some impossibles?
Yeah. Amen.
God, if you don't fix it, won't be fixed. God, if you don't holler, it won't be hollered. God, if you don't do this, it will not happen. God,
Yeah.
I challenge you.
Amen.
Because you know the Bible said nothing is impossible
Nothing.
with God.
Amen.
Okay, y'all.
Amen.
All right, we hear it on. Is it, God, I need you. And here it goes. Verse 9 says, now, I'm almost done. Verse 9 says, don't grumble against one another. Don't grumble or complain. Now here you go, listen to this. Impatience with God often leads to impatience with God's people. Amen.
Amen.
If you're impatient with God, you're going to be impatient with God's people. Have you I know you haven't met nobody in this church, but your cousin them, have you ever met some impatient people? They just won't wait for nothing. They just got to do it right now. Have y'all ever met some impatient people?
Yeah.
When you are impatient with God, you will be impatient with other people. Listen to what Philippians 2:4 says. He says, do everything without complaining or arguing. Did y'all hear what I said? God wants his people to stop complaining. Listen, I know your life is hard. You told me 10 times. I remember the 5th time you told me. Stop complaining and grumbling. Listen to this, y'all. Our tongues will rob us of our harvest. You're going to talk yourself out of blessing. Stop blaming others for what you are going through. Sometimes it's just life. Did y'all hear what I said? Stop blaming everybody. Sometimes what you're going through is life to hit. Hey, you hear these people, God ain't trying to tell you nothing. God just telling you life happens. You had a wreck. Why had a wreck? I ain't living right. No, you had a wreck because the other person can't drive. Ain't nothing you done wrong. Why you had a flat tire? Because your tire worn out. All because somebody they put nails in the road and you ran over tire. God ain't trying to tell you nothing. You just going through life. Tell somebody life happens. Stop complaining. Somebody say it. Amen. It's nobody's fault.
No.
It's nobody's fault. This time. When there are times God's trying to get your attention, but not on everything. Some things God just life. You got sick. Why I got sick? Because you didn't, you hang around the wrong folks. And listen to me. He said, God, and listen, the judge is standing at the door. He said, God is standing at the door. God is standing at the door. Now, he said, because he's tired of hearing your mouth. He's coming to judge your mouth. Now, let me ask you a question. If God tapped you on the shoulder, what are you going to say? You got too much mouth. So, and the fact says God standing at the judge. The judge is standing at the door. God is the judge. Wouldn't be terrible that I block my blessing because I can't keep my mouth.
Amen.
Amen. Now listen to this. God is listening and watching, and he knows our intentions. Did y'all hear what I just said? God is what? He's listening and he's watching, and he knows your intentions. Okay, now I got to move quickly. Verse 10 says, am I helping anybody today? He said, brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. All he's saying is patience and suffering goes together for believers. Because it ain't nothing like teaching you how to patient while you suffer. Amen. It goes together. So we cannot avoid patience, and we can't avoid suffering. It's part of life. Now listen to this. Patience marks the difference between a miserable Christian and a joyful Christian in their trials. Amen. If I really want to know who you are, you're going to show me in your trial.
Amen.
Either you're going to be a nut, and we're going to say, see, the nut right.
Amen.
Or we're going to see, you know, he said he was strong, and look at him. He's going through this. We know he's hurting. Because trial exposes the real Christian in you. Turn with me to Romans 15. Romans 15 is a very good passage, and 15 to verse 14. Are y'all with me? Verse 4. Romans 15. Thank you, Rodney. All right, here we go. He says, because I got to move, I still got a long journey. For everything, now listen to this scripture, for everything that was written in the past was written to teach us. It was did what? It was written to teach us so that through what? Taught in what? And what? They make what?
Provide.
That we might have what?
Hope.
God is saying, when you're going through your difficulty, you ought to look at the prophets and see what they went through. And it should provide hope that if they kept their faith, you can too.
Amen.
Because last time I checked, ain't none of y'all been thrown in lines then.
No.
Amen.
Ain't none of us had to go through a fire 7 times hotter.
No.
Ain't none of us had to take our child and put, tie him up and get ready to kill him. So I think what we go through, we can have encouragement through Scripture.
Amen.
Amen. That's why you got to read Scripture, so you can be encouraged by Scripture. Somebody say amen. The 11th verse, I'm almost done. Well, I'm you know. It says verse 11. Now verse 11, verse 11, I want to pen the rest of my time. And as you know, we count it what? As a blessing. Those who have what? You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion. Let's turn to Job. I want to look at Job, because he said, if you want to understand perseverance, look at Job. If you want to understand patience, look at Job. Now, listen, children of God. Now, all of us know quickly that Job was minding his own business. There was a meeting in heaven. Who showed up? Devil. What did God say? First, he said, "Where are you going?" He said, "Well, you know, where you been?" The devil said, "Well, I've just been going to and fro. I'm trying to find somebody. And then God said, Job did not suggest this. God said, have you tried my servant Job. Sometimes, y'all, God has suggested your name. Y'all tell people the devil just won't leave me alone. He ain't the devil all the time. Maybe it's God. If you read scripture, and when Peter was getting ready to go in Luke 22, verse 31, it tells us in Luke 22:31, the Bible said the devil asked for permission to bother Peter. Y'all missed it over your head. In other words, the devil could not mess with Peter if God didn't give him the okay. So stop giving all the credit to the devil. It may be that God wants you to go through a difficult time to push you through. Maybe God's got a place for you to go, and he knows that the only way you can get through what you can get through and to go higher, that you got to go through some trouble.
Amen.
So the next time trouble introduce himself to you, you ought to say, God got a reward for me, and I'm going to get it.
Amen.
Well, I'm preaching.
Come on.
Okay, so I got excited. Okay. So he says, have you tried Job? So the Bible says that the devil. Now I like God because God grace protects us, because he said, now listen, you can mess with Job, but you can't. But his soul belongs to me.
Amen.
Tell somebody the devil can mess with me, but the devil only can mess with me, but so much because God said, I got this boy. Amen. And so the next time it seems like life is crushing down on you, you ought to say to yourself, he only can do but so much to me because I'm alone. Woo! Well, I'm preaching, y'all. You ought to tell me, okay, you about to stop because you done gone too far. I'm going to check with God and let God know, God, I'm still your servant. Okay.
Come on.
Oh, thank you, Jesus. The devil can only do but so much. So the text tells us that Satan destroyed all his cattle.
Amen.
Took all his land.
Yes.
Killed his 10 children. Job was in a bad spot. Then his body broke out with boils. And his wife looks at him. And she ain't no bad wife. Yo, let's quit. Let's don't give Mrs. Job a bad name. She looks at her husband, seeing what he's been through. We have lost everything. Children gone. Some of y'all probably will say something like that too. All your baby's gone, and she said you're sick and it look like you can't get well. She said, go ahead and cuss God and die. Job said, you talk like a foolish woman. Here you go. Shall we accept good from God? And that's what somebody at the day, you only thought that you came to God because you only wanted good. You came to God only for his blessings. And Job let his wife know, I came to God because he blessed me. But I still serve him when he decides. Amen. Woo.
Amen. Come on.
See, but because many of us, we are good with God when things are great. But the question is, how are you